My intention was like, I want to start the greatest cooking show ever on YouTube. Ma, I need the kitchen for 3 hours today. It's crammed. I needed something. I think part of her realized, like, I don't understand this, but maybe he's onto something. They've always been supportive. When I had a food truck, when I started my food truck, my grandfather had just passed away. So my mom cashed in his life insurance policy and gave me the money to start the food truck.
Oh my God, unbelievable. Perfect. It's a perfect grilled cheese. Totally unreal.
Like, the things that set me aside are not my cooking. You know what I mean? Like, everyone can make a pasta. What I think maybe is unique to me is how I say something. I would read cookbooks, like, as a dyslexic person, I was like, I get it, but like, does everyone get this? If I can just communicate to people who don't understand anything in a way that maybe they can understand it, that might be a reason for people to care about me.
Thanks for taking the time to do this, by the way.
Oh, man. Of course, I kind of settle on Thursday and Fridays as days to do stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Sunday or Monday through Wednesday is usually just a mad dash. So it's like I'm blacked out.
I'm just recording and writing and
Usually it's
doing
just
your
editing
social media.
Usually like today and tomorrow I'm prepping next week's video. And if I can get it shot, I'll do it before the weekend, or I'll use the weekend so that I have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday just to focus on like packaging it.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, editing, even just like cutting up these clips takes a few hours at a time. Plus building all the thumbnails and content, and
then when brands want to see it before you post it, you're like, well, fuck, I'm working up to the minute, you know what I mean? And now I gotta push it back a day. And so like, you just end up figuring out a way to give yourself more time. I mean, I used to wake up on Monday with nothing prepared for Wednesday or Tuesday. I mean, I actually did 2 videos a week in the beginning. I would wake up Monday, or maybe I would do some work Sunday, shoot the video on Monday, start editing it Monday night, wake up early Tuesday, edit it till like noon Tuesday or midday, and then trying to release it at 6 on Tuesday, and then shoot Wednesday and repeat it all to get another video out Thursday, which is insane. But I like, maybe there's a time in your journey as a creator in which you have to sprint, right? And I was sort of doing that, but then eventually you have to like be like, I can't keep sprinting at the cost of quality. So you have to figure out how to get better.
No, I completely agree, and I think also just kind of like that intensity of the deadline is almost the only way to, like, especially at the beginning, get it done.
Of course. I mean,
I'm just like lazy. Urgency.
I'm a lazy person. Like, I don't ever really want to work. Like, I love cooking, but then you put the thing about it is like, they're like, you never work a day when you do what I'm like, that's different. Like, I have to cook. I have to make sure the food is perfect, which is hard to do when you have a camera in your mouth and you have a script in your head. And then you have to manage the cameras, which I'm getting worse at, actually. So I'm caring more about the recipe and less about, this is so routine. I'm just like, it's got to be in focus. And then, I got a new camera and it's like the focus is not really pulling in places I want it to. And so I go to edit, and thank God I've got 2 other cameras, one in the mouth, one on the side, to pick up shots that my main camera is not getting. And so there's like frustrations with that. And so, yeah, it's like when I'm on the show, I'm very serious. It's different than like videos I've done when I'm with people, because there's just so much going on, right? The focus has to be so intense to say what you want to say in the way that you want to say it, to execute the food the way that you want it to be executed, to get the shots you want to get, to explain the recipe properly. So like, there's a lot going on. And when you screw something up, it's, I'm trying to bat 1,000.
Your larger fan base and like people who have been watching you for a while might be more forgiving of a lower quality video for the sake of a great recipe. But especially if you're trying to bring in new people on social media or on YouTube, like the first 30 seconds, 60 seconds, they're going to make a decision very quickly about whether or not they're going to watch another one of your videos.
Which in reality is when a video does well, it's likely not a lot of your audience is watching.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there's like a point, you know, you have like a base, which kind of like is what you have after like the first few hours of the video, everyone coming to like watch. And then after that, it's the algorithm, right? It's like the whole thing with the subscriber is useful and it has purpose, but it is in large part a vanity. You know what I mean? Like I don't rest assured because I have 1 million subscribers that I can just post a video and it gets views. Like it's harder than ever. You know what I mean? You have to try harder to get the views now.
Because there are also these benchmarks from previous videos that you're like, I either need to hit or like overcome because the recipe is better than that one video I made. I don't understand why it wouldn't get more views.
And I've had videos that like have gone crazy. And I still to this day, like maybe 2.5 years ago, I posted them and like I can't recreate that magic. The channel performs well and it's great, but it's like you start, the game of the algorithm starts to fuck with your head. And you're like, well, why did this one do it work and this one didn't? Same on Instagram. Like I'll post the same type and style of video every week. And then one goes crazy. And I'm like, but that's not that different. Like, I don't understand how the swing is so drastic from video to video, but it is sort of just the game. And a lot of your job is to just keep adapting to whatever is changing, which is not ideal for any sort of creative endeavor, but it is what it is. And you kind of have to, if you want to survive, you have to play that game.
Yeah. No, I mean, that made me even curious, just like how your latest risotto reel is doing versus like your Emilio's reel. Because I haven't, like, that was like the first time you've done a video where you're like, let's go to this restaurant and like check this out.
That wasn't even my video. That was a video I worked with. You know, he was a producer for First We Feast, so I worked with him on a show we did. And I think he started his own channel, and it's called Rec Team. And so he's sort of, working with creators to share like, their favorite places. And I'd been thinking about doing something like that for a while. So I was like, I want to do this because I like you. I have a good place to do it in. And like, I know the story so well. So I just like walked in there and I just started talking. And then he was like, well, you answered all my questions. And so I was like, this is like a good exercise for me because I do want to get outside of my kitchen a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that wasn't even my video. They did a great job with it. And they just invited me as a collaborator. So that definitely was a different video of mine, but it wasn't my hands.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it did well. Because I have to have successes like that, especially when you try new things, to motivate you to do them more, because you get stuck. Like, I know what works and now there's a business built around it. Right. So it's like, it becomes scarier to mess with it the longer you're in it, but in reality, like, it is the thing you should be doing the most, is testing, trying new things,
adapting.
I mean, like, I didn't get to my style until I just tried things, right? Stole from people little bits and then threw them into like a Frankenstein of my filter. And then whatever my show ended up being was just elements that all kind of crashed together from things I liked in the world. And so now when I'm trying to develop new stuff, I have to take, movies with, like, I'm big into narrative, right? And that all came from my ability to need something, some sort of mechanism in the first Sunday supper video that I posted, that big pop-up event that I throw in the city. Documentation is different, right? Because when you're documenting, you're not there's not a real intentional story you're always trying to tell. Maybe there is. Maybe there's a story of a person you know and you want to go document what's going on. So you kind of have an idea. But say you just have an event and it's like, okay, I'm cooking a pop-up. I'll be in the kitchen and serving and blah, blah, blah. But you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's the real story. You don't know how to make it a real story yet. A lot of that happens when you're reviewing the footage and you're reflecting on your experience. Now you have a better idea of how to do that. So, but like, how do you convey that in a video? And I go sit down and I watch Goodfellas and I hear the Ray Liotta narration and I'm like, oh, I can do that. And so then now narration becomes a big part of my toolbox to tell documentary stories. But, you know, again, that's a different thing. It's like, I'm trying to work with editors, but I can't wrap my head around how, like, you can train somebody to do something that you're training yourself to, right? So it's like when I'm in the edit of a documentary, like, video, I don't know what I'm doing until halfway through. And then I get an idea and then that starts to shape it. But I still have to massage it. Then I'll massage it and I'll write a whole script and then I'll go and say it out loud. And I'm like, I can't say all this. You know what I mean? It's just too much. So I got to take a paragraph and condense it into 2 sentences to say the same thing, hopefully even better than you did in a paragraph.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, you got to just, I was nervous to do it because it is a lot more work. I mean, I'm used to doing a video in 2 days of like editing, but this thing takes 2 weeks of all of your time, right? But the Seattle video I just did was a good example. I think it's called, I think I settled on the title of how I fell in love with cooking again. But, you know, that was an amalgamation of people's videos. I didn't even want to make a video. So like the story just kind of came to me as I was experiencing things. And like, how do you convey that to an editor? And then like you get it in there and it's making sense, but like it's still a mess. Right. And then the time it takes to work with an editor is he's got to send me the footage. I have to review it. And there's this time drain of this passage of the footage. Yeah. And instead of 2 weeks for me, now you're doing a month just from the time it takes for this guy to comprehend what you need him to do it, to make mistakes, for me to edit the mistakes, for him to try and fix them. And then he'll fix like 60% of them, and then I have to say it again. You know what I mean? Like, it just is so difficult for me to figure out that process in a really smooth way. And so, you know, it's like, but I'll never figure it out if I don't try. So it's like, you got to just kind of, you know, I'm 6 years in the game now. I have been comfortable and complacent, but like, I'm starting to like try and push myself out of it. And it's only because I've done these documentary type things. I've made some of my favorite videos from them. And so like it becomes to get that itch. It's like an addiction. And
yeah.
So, and I think there's like, a lot of to be explored on YouTube that isn't just like this Mr. Beastification of everything. Even in food now, it's become a thing where it's just like, that's great if it works for you, but it's like, I just don't get satisfaction out of that. Like, I want to do real stories that are like relatable. You know, I want to make things where people watch and they feel, you know, deeply. And that's the thing that I'm trying to push towards.
Have you, because I know, like, I've watched so many of your videos, and I've cooked many of your recipes for my friends. One of my favorites is the red bell pepper sauce. Have you considered anything? I know you kind of just said you don't like the Mr. Beastification of YouTube. Really, any videos featuring other people? Like, in a podcast you did, you said that the original idea for the show was to make it for the worst cook. Have you thought about bringing that idea to the show of kind of helping maybe teach the worst cook how to do the recipe, or some type of like, not like an actual coaching thing, but bringing someone else into the scene?
I've thought about it. I've thought about it more in terms of people outside of food who are notable people that don't know how to cook. I thought that would be a fun thing. The hard thing about picking random people, like fans, to do that is just I'm very sensitive about chemistry when I'm with people on camera. Like I've been in situations where like there is no chemistry and it's a torturous experience, right? And I've been fortunate enough to be able to like figure out who I might have chemistry with and then work with them, and it usually works out best. So the only hard thing about doing that is just like vetting, the process of figuring out who will work on camera. You know, you don't want somebody like overzealous who doesn't match my energy, and then I'm like, it's kind of like a battle. You don't want somebody who has no energy and doesn't know and is like frozen on camera, right? Like those are the things that prevent me from doing it. It's just like things that could be worked out, but it's like, again, I'm one person. So it's like, I don't know who's doing this. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a person that's going to vet these people for me. And so a lot of what I do or not do is basically dependent on my time. What's the best use of my time? And right now it's editing and shooting and making the show. And hopefully it would be nice to have that not be the case forever. But, you know, that's something I need to figure out.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's something that you can figure out. I mean, you've seen like the kind of the Mr. Beast style editors or Logan Paul editors, and that might not be what you want, but just the fact that these editors can come in and kind of stoke up a personality and editing style.
I was just talking to, you know, Guga Foods.
Yeah.
I was just talking to him, and, you know, I met him 3 years ago, and I saw his old workspace. And, you know, he had an RV in the driveway that was dedicated to 3 or 4 editors. Like he had a whole crazy setup at the time. And I was just like, Jesus, like I'm not this legit. And he's like, dude, we changed everything. We changed how we do everything recently. And he just moved into this big new compound. And like, you know, he's just talking about how everything is just like a well-oiled machine, even bigger than it was. And, you know, I'm still so far away from that. But it's not that I don't want it. It's that I don't know how to do it. I'm still figuring out how to do YouTube. You know what I mean? Like there's so much that is like still hard for me. So, you know, then having to like work it out with another person, because like it's hard to find somebody who knows, like I want to hire somebody who knows all of this shit better than me. You know what I mean? He's like somebody that is as talented as a creator, but decided he's better as not being in front of camera. You know what I mean? That person is very hard to find in a world where to be the creator seems like the best thing ever. But like if I could find a number 2 who could take like 5 hats away from me and lighten my load, like I'd take care of them. I would like cherish them and make sure that they're happy. Like the value for somebody like me to have a person like that is so extraordinary, and it's so hard to find.
I mean, what hats are you looking to take off your head? Like the shooting and the editing, and I mean,
well, it's like, you know, I would need an editor, but like the idea of like you being solely an editor, like, is difficult to swallow in a world where you have to do everything, right? So ideally, it's like an editor who's competent, who wants to help out in a bigger way, because like, you know, I can't do everything. I can't grow into these bigger ideas if I'm always stuck half of the week at working on the edit for the next video. And it's not to say that I should stop editing altogether, but like there might be a mix in which I can, you know, work on these bigger videos, those ones that take 2 weeks, while somebody's working on the easier day-to-day videos that once you can figure out how to do, they're not that complicated. They're linear. You know what I mean? It's all shot in order, and then you just kind of work it in order. And if you're present cameraman, you kind of know, you can ask questions and know what I'm doing so that I don't have to communicate everything in a meeting, an email, those notes you got to do in that the video, the thing where you can review the video, Frame.io or whatever that software is. It's a big problem. Then they start making edits, right? And then that cuts the timeline down. So the edit that you made the end of the video now is like not there anymore. You know what I mean? So it's like a whole mess. And I just kind of avoid it. Or I do these spurts where I try people for a little bit and it doesn't work out. And then I just go back to editing, and then I get tired of editing and I try again. But I'll figure it out eventually.
Nice. Yeah. It seems like one of those things where you just need to find the right person. It's like meeting the love of your life. It's like
I'm kind of just waiting for somebody to fall in my lap.
Well,
I'm not really like searching for it.
Yeah. And, I think that I just met some kid on Instagram yesterday for like creating short form reels for like me or for other companies. Cause there's just like, everyone has kind of boring reels, or they have really high end reels that they make themselves. And there's kind of nowhere in between or any editors that can kind of do it for you. But this guy has a pretty kind of fancy editing style. And I just stumbled upon him by just like scrolling through reels. So I definitely think you might, if you just keep your eyes open, keep your heart open.
I really am approaching it like a romantic partner. Because I do want to know, I want somebody who's just not going to leave in a year for something better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want somebody to build with, somebody to get to know me, and to build like that telepathic relationship where you just know. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm looking for.
Well, if you're open to a remote editor, we can definitely have a conversation about that too.
Okay.
But I know your time is very valuable, and I had pitched you on 6 questions, 10 minutes. So thank you for going over that. I do have kind of 6 questions that I wrote up that I think are kind of geared more towards people who are in careers right now and have passions but don't take them that seriously. And I think your story is one that kind of helps paint a light on how kind of going for it and kind of going through that kind of scary phase can be very rewarding. So if you're fine with that, I'd love to jump into some of those questions.
Sure.
Cool. So in 2018, 2017, you said it was a challenging time of your life. You had moved back in with your parents, and in your words, things had kind of fallen apart. What was that conversation like with your parents coming home and saying, I know you don't understand what I'm trying to do, but let me try the cooking thing. Let me have the kitchen for 3 hours a day and give this thing a go.
Well, it wasn't really a conversation. It was sort of like, Ma, I need the kitchen for 3 hours today. Scram. And like, we have a good relationship, and she knows, like, I'm not a clown. Like, I'm not going to say something and then kind of fall through on it. So, and I was in a very sensitive place, right? So it was like, I needed something. I didn't have anything. So I think part of her realized, like, maybe I don't understand this, but maybe he's onto something. I don't really know. I never really spoke to them about it, but I know, I mean, like, my intention was like, I want to start the greatest cooking show ever on YouTube. And so imagine when you're in the like lowest part of your life, telling the closest people around you that is your intention. They're like, you start to think later on, it's like, we're worried about Steve. But, I don't know. It was just one of those things when I had nothing to lose. And after, doing it regularly, you know what I mean? Like, I was just keeping doing it. And then I would make sure I showed them, hey, look what's going on. Like, I'm not bullshitting you. Then eventually they're like, okay, maybe there's something here. And then eventually it gets bigger and bigger. It's like, oh, okay, this is cool now. Now they're like proudly toting it. And then I start making money, and then it becomes much more clear. You know what I mean? It becomes less of an issue. I can start to almost like plot a path forward, and I can talk to them about like, look, this is a very good thing. You know what I mean? This is gonna come back to you in some way. So just know that your sacrifice is appreciated and worth it. And you know, I wasn't taking advantage of it. I would also go shop for the house. I'd buy the groceries for the house. I'd cook for them. You know what I mean? So I was not just like, get out of here and then walk away when I'm done, leave a mess, say clean it. You know what I mean? Like, I was responsible. And so I think that helped. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't, they have always been supportive. You know what I mean? My food truck, when I started my food truck, my grandfather had just passed away. So my mom cashed in his life insurance policy and gave me the money to start the food truck. So they're not like, it wasn't a new thing for me to come to them and be like, I have a crazy idea. So, so they're great. I love them for it. They've always been supportive, and, you know, without their support, it's kind of hard to do this, because I did take a lot of time in that kitchen.
Yeah. Hey, we all need to start somewhere.
Yeah. But now I'll take care of them. So, now it's like, not that I wouldn't before, it's like now I can.
Yeah.
Which is better.
And not just in the way of cooking for them.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've got really supportive parents. So I'm in the middle of looking for a new marketing job at the moment. So still living on savings, but they've been, if you need anything, let us know. We're happy to make any connections for you. So that's really cool that they were just like, all right, you go for it.
Yeah. I mean, you need that. I grew up I graduated out of the financial crisis. So like, opportunities weren't great. I mean, you could get a job, but they weren't going to pay you well. And then you could never get a raise no matter how long you were there, especially if you worked in marketing like me. So at the end of the day, the support that not only support, but literal, like in some cases, like financing of my crazy ideas is the only reason I'm here, because they allowed it in some way. So It's important for parents to do that, especially nowadays when it's like you can't rely on a job necessarily. Like, if you have faith in your kid can do something, then you should support that.
They might succeed, and even if they don't, they might hold on to some resentment for you not letting them even try. You said
you might not get thrown into an old person home then.
Exactly. It'll come back around, they'd start taking care of you at the end.
Yeah.
You said you were in marketing, or you graduated with a kind of a marketing degree?
Yeah, BS in marketing.
Did you, I guess, a bullshit in marketing.
Yeah. Because by the time I graduated, nothing I learned was relevant.
Because that immediately it goes from like omni-channel marketing and TV and radio to social media, YouTube. I mean, obviously I see the way you market on Instagram and YouTube, but what do you think you've learned the most about kind of marketing your show and the best way to do that? Like, is there anything that you've, like, the formula that you found that that kind of increases your views or gets the most eyeballs on it?
I think my marketing strategy relies on authenticity and then developing skills I think are highly valuable, and those are communicating and storytelling, right? So, like, the things that set me aside are not my cooking. You know what I mean? Like, everyone can make a pasta, a cacio e pepe, a steak. What I think maybe is, unique to me is how I say something, or at least that's how I try and approach things, is to say it in a way. As somebody who's like dyslexic and a difficult learning in school, it's like I just believe the teachers just weren't speaking to me properly, right? And so it's like, I think the same thing about cooks. It's like when I would read cookbooks, like as a dyslexic person, I was like, I get it, but like, does everyone get this? What you're saying, all these esoteric terms. And so I felt like just the teaching of a cookbook or a recipe was just inherently flawed. So if I can just communicate to people who don't understand anything in a way that maybe they can understand it, that might be a reason for people to care about me. And then more recently, it's about storytelling. It's like, if I can be better at reflecting on an experience and then be able to tell that story in a compelling way, now that I'm kind of good at video editing, I can now kind of all put it all together into something that is reminiscent of like a documentary plus a cooking show, right? Like the idea of blending those two things to me is like the thing that I could maybe contribute, and to do that in like a fresh way. And so it's like, those are the things that I'm focused on in terms of marketing, which is basically just finding a way to differentiate myself from the thousands upon thousands of other people who do what I do, and just try to not be like everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's funny that the cliche that if you just be yourself, that like that's standing out enough. And as like I produced music, I DJ, so like that always kind of felt like a cliche that if you stand out, like just be yourself, it's like you're enough of a brand to not, you don't have to try to be anybody else. I've definitely seen that in your style, just with, like you said, Guga, and I'm trying to think of a couple other chefs that I watch, but honestly, I don't really watch many other YouTube chefs besides your videos. You do have a very unique style in the way that you even set up your videos, your shots. I don't know anyone else using a GoPro mouthpiece for surfing to kind of show you with two hands how you're breaking down your tomatoes, or even just like checking out the pan. But yeah, I think you have learned a way to kind of use that as your storytelling and break it down. And it's like finding those little things that separate you, whether it's your shooting or even just the way that you script write. Like Sean Evans, his script writing for every show is like, I feel like the moment you hear it, if someone else was reading his script, you'd recognize that as kind of his tonality and the way that he does things. So yeah, I think that's kind of great advice for just having great storytelling and figuring out what makes you unique.
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting out and you're just like kind of copying what you see in the world and it's not working, then try doing the opposite. Like, just try figuring out what it is about you that's unique and lean all the way into that.
And I know that's tough to do sometimes, but it's also like if you're only copying, you're not going to find that.
Yeah, at some point you have to break away. I mean, I copied in the beginning, but then I had now tried enough things to break away and to formulate something that felt more like me.
And kind of speaking to breaking away, I know that you said that you hate trends and you hate jumping on trends. I don't know what podcast it was, but you mentioned specifically like the AI cooking trend, and that you kind of refused to jump on that train.
I had a decent idea, and then like I needed time to develop it because like,
and then it was like
fast. And then literally in 2 days, I was like, ew, this is disgusting. I can't do it.
There's too many people have done it. It's played out. Is there another trend that you had a great idea for, but just absolutely refused to get on the train?
No, because a lot of the trends I don't really like. It's a gimmick, right? It's a one pot thing. How can we do this but in one pot? Yeah. And like, I get why that's attractive to people, but like, it's now game to figure out, right? And I just don't want to play that game. Like, I don't care about the million views that video might get because they don't care. You know what I mean? Like, the problem with these audiences is, or the platforms, is they separate you from the audience. YouTube gets you closer. TikTok, Instagram separate you. And so it's like, I got, I mean, even on TikTok, I'll get millions of views on a video and then grow my following by like, and so it's like, okay, nobody cares. The TikTok algorithm has now come full circle. When we broke away from TV, now we're back at TV. Well, you don't get to choose what you watch. It decides for you, which is a version of what TV used to be. And so, like, I just think it's a little bit interesting and funny. Like, even from 6 years ago when I started, everything's changed, right? And so it's difficult because I want to build a deep relationship with people. And so the reason why I don't succeed as much or put as much effort into these other platforms is because they take me away from you. And so you got to be there. But if I can get you to care on YouTube, like for me, that's a more healthy place to be.
Yeah. Like you're just cultivating a more meaningful relationship. TikTok followers don't really translate into like your YouTube views or paying customers. It's kind of just like a metric that you can.
And like my audience skews older. And so I don't get the viral views, right? Like my audience doesn't drop, the meeting that they're in to go watch my video. Maybe they come back on the weekend when they have a minute to watch it. But they also have money, right? So when I do pan sponsorships, they buy the pans, right? So it's like you have to understand the audiences are different, right? Like just because you have a huge audience on TikTok doesn't mean you can sell shit. And I know that for a fact, right? Like I know people who struggle with that, right? Because they're like, I have millions of followers, but I couldn't sell 100 items, right? Which you'd think would be easy. And I know people who have millions of followers who can sell hundreds of items easily that sell out in 10 minutes. So it's like, you have to be pretty acutely aware of who your audience is. And then you have to be able to know what they will buy and what they won't buy. And, that's something that you should always account for is like everybody's audience is different. Don't just be jealous at the person who has millions of followers and views because you think that, they're rich and everything's going well. It's like, it's not always the case. Right. So, I compare myself to other people. It is a natural human thing to do, especially in this world where you're being thrown it in your face every day. But like, it's not the smart thing to do.
Yeah. While you were saying that, I did think of an idea for you that you'd either love or hate and could possibly even get some of that younger audience. It would be a little Mr. Beastification of YouTube because I think it'd be interesting to do like the same meal or different meals cooked from dorm room to your first apartment or your last apartment. Like given the tools that you have, I've seen on TikTok that kid who makes different meals, and there's one Gordon Ramsay's commenting on, and he's using like all of these like really small dorm room tools to cook like in his bed.
See, that's a good idea. And I would want to do that, but do you know instantly what my thought is that holds me back?
What
is like I don't know what I don't know how to make that thumbnail. But that is like the thing that would motivate me or not. If I had a thumbnail expert, that's one thing. But like I have to still make the thumbnails, and I don't think I'm very good.
I'll draft up a thumbnail for you for that idea just because I'd love to.
Can you make thumbnails?
Yeah.
All right. Maybe you can make my thumbnails.
All right. I can do that for you. That'd be fun, actually.
That's another huge thing I would love to never do again.
I mean,
there's so many things I would love to never do again in this job.
I'd be happy to give many of those hats a try for you. Just off the bat, because I do like making thumbnails and I can edit videos pretty well. I am located in Utah. That is kind of the only, the real heartbreaker for a possible match made in heaven.
Well, the last editor I had was in Europe, and they were then outsourcing another editor in some other time zone. So I was losing.
So he was like a project manager.
One day at Wednesday, I'm waiting for like another cut, and they told me, which is my release day, they're like, the editor's asleep. We can't get a contact with him. I'm like, what time zone is he in? I mean, Jesus Christ.
This is why we have shared folders.
Yes.
I will. Let me add that. I'll add that thumbnail. And then
if you remember watching, if anyone listening who's watching videos of mine beginning of this year in like January, February, and like all of the videos were late, it was because of these editors.
And that broke your heart. It kind of gave you a bad taste in your mouth for hiring an editor.
Oh, they made me go crazy. It's like
this is
what I realized is like relationships like that, the working relationships, the reason you approach them like a romantic one is because like they're equal. When they're toxic, they're the same as a toxic romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Like you become a horrible person because you just can't, like you have no control, and then you feel like people are fucking with you. You know what I mean? When they don't answer your email or whatever, or your call, and it makes you go crazy. And then I've worked with people where I'm not like that at all. So it's like, there is something to be said about that chemistry. And don't find and if you feel like you're in any sort of working relationship where you want to wring their neck, you got to walk away.
Yeah. It's probably an HR violation.
Yeah.
Geez. I after watching your Amelia's video, I kind of I'm talking to my friend Gab next week on the podcast. She just opened an awesome restaurant in the West Village called Gab's. But after kind of thinking for that, she's not that active on social media with Gab's in terms of making their own content. So using Emilio's as an example, if a restaurant wanted to get involved in the short form content game, what kind of content do you think would be most successful for them on social media? So like using Emilio's as an example, like what could you see them doing that might be successful? I know you talked about the father being kind of at the front of the restaurant, kind of either scaring people or just kind of being a presence there. Do you think any
well, Emilio's is like, a mythical kind of place, right? So it's like their marketing is baked into their business. They kind of don't need it.
Yeah. Well, hypothetically,
if I was a new restaurant, I mean, as a guy who loves watching things, like I love watching food being made, right? If I go to a restaurant and sit at an open kitchen bar, I get lost in watching. And on YouTube now, there's lots of restaurant guys on Instagram, these chefs that just find a way to do POV videos. They share their chef magic, these tricks, things you don't do at home, things I wouldn't do here, but I'd like seeing them share their process. Every restaurant has a process that's unique. Mm-hmm. So it's like sharing the story in these micro bits. I share my personal story through about 50 videos every year, right? So it's all my story, just in little bits, right? So you take a restaurant and you just segment it down into all of its parts. And then you find ways to tell the story of all of those parts over time. Not in one video. You don't try and sum everything up in some cinematic, crazy thing. Just tell a real story that's relatable. Like, who are these chefs? Tell their story, make them stars. You know what I mean? Like, elevate everything. You know what I mean? Or you could hire somebody like me as a documentarian. Document the process of us running this restaurant, and then work on narrative type content around it. Throw it onto YouTube. Like, restaurants just don't do this. But if you did, it would be, and you had the characters, people involved were like good, which some are. The people who I work with at Sunday Supper, the chefs of the stand, are characters, and they're like, everyone's a character. So for me, it's like it's a reality show. I don't have to script it. I don't have to Cast it. Everybody's there. I just have to have cameras rolling. And then you have somebody capable to figure something out afterwards. Like, just document, because you don't know what you're going to film. And then maybe you have an amazing moment that you could share a full story and a lesson. And, you know, you just, like, for me, I just always go back to, like, the arc of a story. You know what I mean? Just play within that format. And don't overthink it. I mean, this guy, Dobers, there's a restaurant in Australia, and the chef, this guy Dober, he's at this, like, very happy, pleasant personality, and he just shares little bits from his kitchen. They store their reduction sauces in thermoses, so they don't over reduce and they stay hot, and they can take it on the pass and just pour the sauce on, cover. It's like a genius method, right? To just running a restaurant. And then he shows these, like, line shots and him on the stove, and he grew a huge audience. Now he's like a famous person.
Document.
Yeah, he's just took a phone, figured out a way to hitch it onto his, similar to what I do with Mouthcam. You know what I mean? You just figure it out. You're not just a chef anymore. You're a marketing person. You're a creator. You have to be all of these things. If you're a painter, you're not just a painter anymore. You're going to be a businessman, a marketer, a content creator. Like, this idea that you are this one thing, throw it out the window. You are now everything. That's just how it is.
You got to make the art, and then you also have to document the art while you're making the art, and then post-produce the art.
You got to do everything. You got to do everything.
And that's why you want to get rid of a couple hats.
Exactly.
Well, quickly before we go, with Thanksgiving around the corner, I cannot recommend Steven's stuffing recipe enough. I'll link it in the description, but you can find his stuffing and some other unbelievable recipes in his ebook, Holiday Plan of Attack, on his website, NotAnotherCookingShow.com. And with that...
.tv,
NotAnotherCookingShow.tv.
I think .com was taken.
What is TV now? It's waiting for your own channel.
I guess that wasn't a smart move.
Well, you know, if people are finding you through social media, I feel like not a ton of people are typing in the URL directly. And if you're searching up Not Another Cooking Show,
my website does not rank well.
No, with all the videos and contents you post, it's not SEO.
Yeah, but these legacy bloggers just dominate.
Yeah, I guess if you throw the word "not" in there, it's just like, you couldn't have meant that. You couldn't have meant not. So it's got to be Cooking Show. But if you type in Not Another Cooking Show, you're the first rank for me.
Well, I am the only not. I hope so.
Not just another cooking show. If you like food, toss him a follow at The Food Freak on Instagram. He is wonderful, talented, and a hell of a chef. He's Steven Cusato. Thank you so much for having yourself on the show.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.